My e-bike was stolen, and my Apple AirTag said the bike was taken to a specific house on this street. Find out how I get my bike back and how the police nearly screwed the whole thing up. Welcome to the channel. I'm Liz and I have a doozy of a video for you today. I'm standing here in St. George, Utah, pretty close to the scene of the crime where I got my bike stolen. What was stolen was a juiced Rip Current S step through. It's a $2,500 e-bike. I have had it for 6 months and have over 1,300 miles on it. In fact, I rode it from Pittsburgh to DC. I love this bike. It can go anywhere, but obviously it is a hot property. People will break locks, they will take risks to steal this bike. So the crime scene is right here at the Marriott Courtyard in St. George. Now, you know me most likely as a full-time RVer. I've been on the road for 4 years, but I was in between campers, so I needed to stay at a hotel for a few days. I had my e-bike with me. It was locked on the bike rack. So what happened was, the 3 nights I spent at the Marriott, the first 2, I parked my bike on the side lot and I kept it covered. Now, I was uncovering it one morning and a hotel employee walked by and she said, "Hey, you know, you should just park it in the front. We've got cameras and it'll be safer there." So, on my last night at the hotel, I came back late. It was around 8:30. I mean, it was dark. It wasn't super late. And I parked right by the front door. I was probably 4 spaces from the front door. It was a brightly lit parking lot. And as I'll explain later, I'd kind of had a rough time of it the last few days. So I thought, well, it'll be safe here. And yes, I left the bike uncovered, but it was locked. And again, pretty much right outside the front door. Well, the next morning I woke up and I just had a bad feeling. 6:30 in the morning, I went downstairs and I was just afraid to look. But sure enough, the thieves had broken the lock, and the lock was a good lock around this bike, and apparently the lock was not good enough, right? So I was devastated to find that my bike was gone, and I walked back into the hotel. I had the front desk call the police. I explained it was gone. They said an officer would be out in a little bit. It was about 6:30 in the morning, and it took me about 15 minutes to remember that Juiced actually puts a special GPS tracker slot in their bikes, and a GPS tracker will allow you to track anything, and that is just a really great thing, particularly for e-bikes. So I looked on my phone and I found the exact address where my bike was, and the last time it had been updated was 11:15 the night before. I was like, okay, in my mind, thieves are up late thieving and are probably sleeping in, so it's probably going to be good. It'll be there for a while. I called the police back just to update them, hoping that I'd get the officer out sooner by saying, "Hey, I know the address, so have them come out and let's get this done, let's get this bike back." Well, here's where the mistake happened. About the time the officer showed up, about an hour later, I checked my phone and lo and behold, the bike is on the move. I'm like, what happened? Oh my gosh. I speak to the officer. The bike was 3.5 miles away, but it was in the next town. It was in Washington, Utah. Dispatch called a Washington, Utah police officer who went to the door of the house where the bike was, knocked on the door and said something like, "Hey, do you have an e-bike? Would you happen to have an e-bike here that maybe doesn't belong to you?" And they said, no, we don't have it. And the officer drove away. And then these people panicked and they had to get rid of the bike. The bike was now on the move. I could tell by the tracker that it looked like that it had stopped moving. I now had a new address on the location finder, and the cop said, "Well, that's a few miles away. Let me go check it out. You stay here." And I said, "No. I need to follow you. I need to be with you, because the way the Apple AirTag works is if I'm close enough, I can make that GPS tracker make a noise. So if it's in a building or another house or whatever, and the person denies, 'No, I don't have the e-bike,' I can push the button and it's going to go beep, 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 and they're going to be called out as a liar." So the officer agrees to let me follow her. She said, when we get close to the location, I'm going to ask you to pull over and wait. I don't know if there's going to be any kind of situation, so I'll have you wait, maybe 100 feet away. And I said, fine. So now we're headed over there. So I really just don't know what they were thinking, why they would just show up at a door and say, hey, do you have any stolen merchandise? Oh, you don't? All right, fine. Thank you. Sorry for bothering you. I mean, that's what I figure must have happened. I can't believe that they did that. And why didn't they just wait and see what happened? Because clearly what happened was they got in the car and they took off with the bike. We all have days where we miss a few things and we don't do it right. And this was definitely one of them. The number one mistake I made, I think, was I really believed that bright lights by the front door meant something. That was a big learning to me, to be just steps from the front door, and that not being enough to stop a thief. I believed and really trusted what the employees said, that there were cameras. Turned out not to be cameras. Wouldn't have mattered if there were, because if there were cameras, this hotel is 4 stories high. The cameras would have been on the roof. Going down would have just gotten tops of heads, wouldn't have helped. The next mistake was trusting the lock on the bike rack. I had taken that bike uncovered to Walmart and to other stores, and of course left it in the hotel parking lot overnight. I thought that that lock was infallible. This is a Hollywood Racks bike rack. It's called the RV Rider. I love it. I can load and unload the bike by myself, which by the way weighs 65 pounds without the battery and 75 with, and I really love that bike rack. Evan, the owner of the company, explained that that lock is not meant to do that. It's meant to protect the bike if you run into a gas station. It is not meant for this kind of situation. You need a hardened steel chain lock. So I do have a link for that lock. I do have the lock. So I know your number one question is, why didn't I just take it to my hotel room? Well, I could have. I was just in a rough spot. I just wasn't firing on all cylinders. I had broken up with my boyfriend just 3 days earlier. I had then set a personal record and drove 750 miles in one day to buy a new camper. The day the bike got stolen was my birthday. So there was a lot going on, and I thought, hey, if I'm parking it right by the front door in bright lights, I don't even need to cover it, it'll be fine. Do not leave a bike unattended in a hotel parking lot or really anywhere. It should be covered, it should have a hardened chain steel lock, and preferably in your hotel room if you can. So yeah, I wasn't perfect, but I wanted to make this video to help you. These e-bikes, it seems like people will stop at nothing to take them. I got really lucky in that they didn't throw my bike in the river. What they did was they drove it a few miles to an industrial park and just dumped it. The damage to the bike, fortunately, was repairable. Apparently what happened was after the police knocked on the door and they left, the thieves just panicked, and they realized, of course, that there was a GPS tracker in there, and they tried to get the battery off the bike. They still wanted to keep the bike, but let's get rid of the battery. And they hacked and hacked at that battery and broke it, and it was no longer functional. But thank you, Juiced, I was able to get a replacement battery, so that's awesome. I want to thank Juiced Bikes for having a place to put a GPS tracker. They actually are going to pass this on to you. This is a really feel-good story because of the happy outcome. If you order an e-bike from Juiced between now at the end of the year, they will give you a free Apple AirTag. Just put in the code Liz AirTag and you'll get a free AirTag with your bike. I'm really grateful that the St. George police had it together, and they're the ones that helped me find my bike. So thank you so much for your help on that. And I'm super happy to have my bike back, and we'll be locking it up with that hardened steel chain lock every time. Let me know in the comments if you have ever had anything stolen, and I'll see you in the next video.